how to build a sauna floor. In this video, I'll show you how to build a sauna floor step by step, whether it's a tile or a wooden floor. This video is divided into 5 parts. First, we'll talk about the foundation of the sauna floor. Then we'll move on to insulation, and then on top of that, whether you go for a tile floor or a wooden floor, we'll go through those next. And then after that, we'll talk about how you keep those floors clean. I'm Anton, I'm a Finnish-born sauna expert. I've helped thousands of people and businesses design their saunas that actually work as they should. Foundations and capillary break. Under the outdoor sauna floor, a layer is recommended to stop moisture from rising by capillary action. Capillary action is a process where water rises from the ground through tiny pores or gaps in the material due to surface tension, even against gravity. A ventilation or capillary break helps keep the structure dry and healthy for a long time, which is especially important for colder climates. Gravel, for example, works well as a capillary break, preventing any humidity from rising from the ground. The better you prepare the foundation of your structure, the easier and longer the sauna will last. It's that simple. Insulation. Insulating a sauna floor is something that's really good to do in colder climates. It's not that needed when your sauna is in a milder or warmer climate. Of course, it doesn't really hurt, but it can be unnecessary since the benefits are not that big when considering the extra cost of adding insulation in those warmer climates. If you decide to add insulation to a sauna floor, you'll want to have at least 4 inches thick XPS or EPS insulation board that has enough compression strength, usually at least 29 psi. Compression strength means basically that how much weight the insulation can handle without it being crushed. You want to put the insulation boards tightly against each other, and if you're using multiple layers of insulation, stagger the seams so that thermal bridges don't form that easily. Thermal bridge is a weak spot in insulation where heat can escape a little bit more easier. A good idea is to add extra insulation to the edges of the floor since they're more prone to frost. That extra insulation can be around 2 to 4 inches thick, and the stretch towards the middle of the sauna can be around 3 feet, so they're taken care of. Okay, so here's that extra insulation on the edge of the sauna, like I mentioned, that stretch around 3 feet to the middle of the sauna. So the red one here you see is going to be basically the extra insulation. So there we go. So basically, so you get an idea on what's going on in this picture here. That drain there is just to give you an idea of where you're looking from. So this is kind of like looking from the top down at the floor, like a bird's eye view. And this orangey area here in the middle, that's just a normal layer of insulation. So you can put that here. No need to put double there or any extra. You can if you want, but not that needed. Those edges are the ones that are prone to frost. And then moving on to the next one. The 2 most common base materials are wood and concrete. Concrete is rarely used by itself because it absorbs moisture, so it's typically paired with tile. First, we'll go through the tile floors, and then we'll move on to the wooden floors next. Tile is one of the best options for a sauna floor, but it does need careful preparation before pouring the concrete underneath it, like ensuring the ground can handle the weight and that it's flat. The concrete should be at least 3 inches thick and usually reinforced with steel mesh. When the insulation is in place, we can start pouring the slab. When you're pouring concrete on top of the insulation, around 3 to 4 inches thick concrete is enough. You'll want to mix in concrete products to help make the slab a bit more waterproof and also ensure that there's enough reinforcement in the concrete. It's really important not to forget about sloping the floor. The slope should be at least 1.25%, but local codes may be a bit more than that. But at least you get the idea. And the slope should of course go towards the drain, and yes, you do need a drain in there. It just makes everything so much easier, like cleaning the sauna or when you're in the sauna, everything is just a lot more stress-free. You could get away with not putting a drain in there if you dry the floor every time and ensure there's no water left behind, but that can be a bit annoying if you're going in the sauna every day. And you don't want to stress about creating mold when you're trying to relax. Concrete slabs always need that waterproofing layer before moving on to any surface materials. On top of the concrete, you'll need at least to put a waterproof membrane. That waterproofing membrane should be continued up the walls of the sauna around at least 4 to 6 inches so that none of that water escapes the room of the edges of the floor. It's like a water tub with very low edges, and you don't want any of that water going outside the tub. This connection point between the wall and the floor barriers should be seamless. On top of that waterproofing membrane, you want to put modified thin-set mortar to which the tiles are attached to. And below that floor, it's good to have floor heating that accelerates the drying and comfort of the floor when you're in the sauna. This is especially important in colder climates. Also, if your sauna is part of another structure, the floor heating helps keep the space always room temperature when not in use. Okay, so let's do a quick recap on all the different layers that are involved with the tiled floor. So we'll start with just the ground, of course. So that will be here. As you can see, the green is just your regular grounds, grass, whatever. And on top of that, you see a little layer. That's the capillary break. In this case, specifically, that's gravel. So that's basically the foundation of what we're going to be starting to build on. Then we'll move on to the red things you see here, and that's going to be the insulation boards. So you're going to put those insulation boards right on that gravel. So right here, if I just can. Those insulation boards, like I said, you want to make those on the edges a little bit thicker, and then towards the middle you don't need to have. So just because their edges are a little bit more prone to frost. And here you won't see it, but the drain would be here already made. A little hole for it in the middle or wherever you want to position it, but it's not there, but you get the idea. It can be wherever you want. Then from there, when we have the insulation boards, we're going to be pouring that concrete slab. That concrete slab here, put it there. That's the one that you want to be doing basically all the tiles and the waterproofing membrane onto. So anything below that is not going to be really relevant anymore in this case. After we've done the concrete slab, we move on to the waterproof membrane. And the little blue thing you see there in the edges, that's basically the connection point between the walls and the floor. And you want to go up like around 4 to 6 inches. So you get that little tub like I mentioned. So let's put here, membrane. There we go. So with the waterproofing membrane on top, then the last thing comes is the tiles. So the tiles that will be coming on top will be, of course, with that thin set modified mortar, and we'll mark the tiles here. And you see those tiles that they will also go up the edges a little bit. I didn't do it here, it was a bit tricky to do it. But yeah, that will be going on top of that waterproofing membrane, so you don't actually see that membrane on the edges. And here you also see between those tiles is the different kind of seams you want to cover with the silicone on this edge of the sauna. And yeah, let's put that here. Seams. And yeah, basically when you've done that, then of course you just want to connect those wall paneling and make sure that the vapor barrier and that waterproofing membrane meet and they're seamless together. And then you're pretty much set with the floor. We don't distress. And somewhere here there would be the floor drain. We're just going through all of that and just want to make sure that all of that is properly insulated and also waterproofed, so none of that humidity goes anywhere else. The tile floor is the most common option and the easiest to maintain. When choosing the tiles, the main idea is that you don't want to smack your head on the floor. So you want to get tiles that have a bit rougher or a matte texture on top. They are the go-to options of floors since they are not as slippery. 4x4 inch to 8x8 inch wet room tiles are usually the best size for the floor. Smaller 4x4 inch tiles work the best in a sauna since they are easy to adjust for the sloping of the floor. Remember to have enough slope between the tiles and the drain so that large amounts of water can escape the cabin efficiently. And when putting the tiles on the floor, the tile seam should also be sloped towards the drain. The recommended location for that drain is either under the benches or somewhere very close to them, since that is where the most water is usually used. Sealing the seams is a critical step in building a sauna floor. Use elastic grout or sealants designed specifically for sauna conditions, as they can withstand the temperature changes and moisture. Remember to let it dry properly and check all of the seams between the floor and the walls. Use a mold-resistant silicone to seal all of the corners and any pipe penetrations. Run a smooth continuous bead and then smooth it with a damp finger, for example, or a tool for a clean, professional finish. Inspect these areas regularly and fix the silicone immediately if you notice any cracking or deterioration. Since the sauna will be constantly under changing humidity and temperature, you'll want to use the right materials and adhesives that are suitable for those wet spaces. Wooden floor. Wooden sauna floors are a traditional and warmer option under your feet. They're commonly used in outdoor saunas and aren't recommended for any indoor saunas because it won't create a fully sealed wet room. Good wood choices for the floor are usually spruce and pine, which can handle humidity fairly well. The floor wood is recommended to be at least 1.1 inches thick and 3.5 inches wide. Under that wood floor, you'll need strong support frame that has the support beam spaced out usually around 16 to 24 inches. On top of those support beams, tongue and groove boards are usually used for doing the floor with very minimal to no gaps. With proper slope, drain, and ventilation, gaps are not really needed. Those boards are connected to the support beams with nails or screws, but you want to make sure that any of them aren't visible when you're going in the sauna. You want to leave a small gap at the edges of the floor so that wood has a little bit of space to move around if it expands. Okay, so you get an idea on how that wooden floor is actually made and what it looks like. So we have the same as we did on the tiled or concrete floor. So we have the grounds and then we have the capillary break, which is that gravel. We put here ground and gravel. So that should be already familiar by now, but I put it there just so it's really clear. Then we'll move on to the wooden studs that's going to be underneath the sauna floor. So they'll be spaced around 16 to 24 inches, depending on, of course, how you want to do it. Either way it works, of course. So here we put the studs. So yeah, you see it slowly rising up towards the floor. And after the studs, it's pretty simple. Then you have those wooden boards, tongue and groove boards, whatever you end up using. And that's just going to be resting on top of those studs. And you want to kind of slope this floor, of course, towards the drain in the sauna. So just the water exit properly out of the sauna floor. And let's put here, let's go with spruce floor. But yeah, there's the spruce floor. And then here somewhere around here, you put the drain, and then that would just drain onto the ground. It's okay with outdoor saunas. Doesn't matter if it goes to the ground. It's not going to be that much water. You don't need to plumb it. Main thing is that the water really exits that sauna cabin. So basically how you slope the floor is really simple. That you want to put these bigger wood pieces underneath the tongue and groove boards, which in this case were spruce we chose. So for example, here you see the studs. So on top of those studs, you want to put like a thick piece that would be in between them, of course. And then when you get towards the drain, you want to put a little bit thinner, and then thinner, and then eventually nothing really there. So that's how it just kind of naturally goes down to the drain. Simple. Insulating a wooden floor is not generally recommended since you don't want to trap any moisture between the wood planks and the insulation. And if you have an air gap between them, then that floor will just feel cold since there's cold air between those layers. Having proper circulation above and below the sauna floor will make it last a long time. You'll want to treat the wood with a wax or paraffin oil that helps with handling humidity in the sauna. I recommend natural oils or a sauna wax to protect it from moisture, but also allow the wood to breathe. Wood floors do require a lot more attention and maintenance to prevent any damage from rotting. You'll want to treat the floor at least twice, letting the first time dry out properly before that other treatment. Repeat this treatment every 1 to 2 years or more frequently if the floor looks dry. Keeping the floor clean. Whichever floor you choose, here's a simple care routine. The easiest way to keep the floor clean is to rinse the floor with clean water after being in a sauna. This prevents any dirt from sticking and sweat from building up on the floor. I'll have to admit that I don't do this every time I've been in my sauna, which has a tile floor. Usually when I've been in the sauna for longer sessions or with more people, I'll rinse it to get rid of any sweaty smells that can appear. If you want to wash the floor more properly, don't use any strong cleaning products since these can damage the coating of the floor or the seams. Also use something like a brush or a sponge to clean the floor, not any abrasive tools. Good ventilation in the sauna room helps a lot with drying the floor and also prolongs the lifespan of the floor significantly. For example, opening the sauna door when you're done with your session is a good way to let any humidity escape more effectively. So, that is one way of building a tiled or a wooden floored sauna. But I do want to mention that there's many ways of building a sauna floor and that there's not one and only way of doing it. Someone might count 1 + 1 with their fingers and others might do it in their heads. Regardless, both of them get the job done. If you want to see us build a wooden sauna floor step by step, check out this video.